Hi again, Sheila here with Creative Aging. We're going to continue making some jewelry today using our Sculpey polymer clay and pigments, which last time we used gold. This time we're going to use some silver too. And so everybody should have a little bit of pigments that I delivered, a little gold and silver. If you did not get that delivery, just text me and let me know and I can swing by and get you some. I know everybody's not doing this just because not everyone has an oven at their senior living facility, so it just kind of depends on the place. And so we need our clay, and then you're going to need some tools because we're going to roll it flat. If you have a rolling pin, then that's amazing. These are for polymer clay, so they're plastic, so they won't stick. You don't want to use a wooden one. So if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use something like this. Just get like a can or a cup. Just make sure it's all the same width. You don't want a cup that where it gets smaller to bigger because it's not going to roll flat. So just find something that will roll your clay flat. Just look around your place. I'm sure everybody has something. So this is a can if you don't have a rolling pin. Then to get the shape, we're going to cut our own shape. And you need a knife, or if you have clay tools, you can use this kind of blade. It's just like a razor, but this cuts it perfectly. So of course, just use a knife if you don't have this blade. We're just cutting an edge, so we're not going to do anything too detailed. And you're going to need to poke a hole in it. And so this is one tool if you have clay tools. If not, we're going to use a paper clip again. That works just as good. So see, I just opened this paper clip up and it makes the perfect size hole for our necklace pendant. Okay, and then we're gonna do our drawing. The detail part of the project is done with pencil again. So let me show you up close. And so we've drawn butterflies in a project. We also just did the peacock bookmarks. And so I don't want you to be too nervous about drawing into clay, so I'm trying to bring back shapes that we've already done. So you've practiced both peacocks and butterflies. These two are just gonna be just some kind of abstract marks. So we're gonna do a few things, and I'll do it with you. And again, I know there's color on the examples, but we're just gonna use silver and gold today. And then of course you're gonna need your hoop rings or jump rings. They can be gold or silver. And you need some kind of cord, ribbon, chain, whatever you end up wanting to put your necklace on. Most people will have a chain at home, so you can just slip these onto a silver or gold chain. Or if you have some kind of ribbon, cord, elastic, anything will work. So let me clear my space and we will get started. I'm gonna leave these up here so you can kind of see them. As always, let's warm the clay up. And you don't need that much. So I'm gonna warm this big, not even big ball, and this is pretty small actually. And it's like quarter size of clay. I'm gonna split it into a couple sections, so we'll make a few things. So you don't need that much for this project. So I'll just split it into 3. And for some reason, the clay I have right now is really soft already, so I'm not gonna warm it up too much. You don't want it to get sticky. So if it feels sticky already, that's not a good sign. I would let it sit and just don't touch it. You don't want it to be sticky, especially when we're drawing into it. It just makes it harder. So once it's good, I want you to roll it out, and you can press it first. If you want to press it with your hand and flip it, just to get it a little flat. Now it'll be less work with your rolling pin or can or cup or whatever you're going to use. So I'm going to use both just to show you. So you want to lightly, you do not want to press too hard to where you get your rolling pin stuck. You just want to lightly move it back and forth, flip it. And so see, I'll use my can. Works just as fine. So light, back and forth till you get a good thickness. Think about what it's going on your neck. So you don't want it to be too thick or too thin to where to break. And my can, I'm not sure if you can see it, it just made a mark on my clay. That's okay because we're gonna cover these with pigment. So if you do use a cup or a can or something that might make it discolored, since we're covering it, it won't be a big deal. Okay, so at this point, let's start with our little peacock one. And I could leave it this shape. I kind of like an organic shape. Or we can just move it with our fingers. We can also cut it. So if you wanted to just create a point, you could with a pinch. Or we could cut our own shape. So I'll use this butter knife, just since I know everyone will have a butter knife. So you almost want to just not push into your clay, but you just want to hold it to where it doesn't move with the knife, because you want to have all the control and make it, just curve it and cut exactly wherever you want your edge. Okay, now did you notice I did not move my knife up and down because that's going to make it choppy. I put it into the clay and I gradually moved it, and go slow. You know, with clay you always want to go slow because you want to have all the control. That's what's going to look good. So that's a good edge, and then let's do the same thing right over here. And I like it to look not symmetrical because it looks more artistic and pretty, and you know, you can make it perfectly symmetrical, but if you make it organic, that's okay too. Like this one is definitely not exact. That's how I wanted it. All right, so this, now because we're using a butter knife instead of this, now this is the best option. Let me just show you. You can really get the most perfect straight edge with this tool. So if you have this kind of tool, that's better. If you don't, you're just gonna have to smooth a little bit. Hopefully you can see that there's a little bit of roughness from that butter knife. So you're going to need to smooth it out. So once you get your shape, you don't want those edges to be rough looking. So just kind of push it and smooth it. Because any mark that you do is really going to be emphasized with this pigment. That's what's great about the pigment, is it shows your texture and your detail so much better than on the just white clay. But that also means you need to get it perfectly smooth and exactly the way you want before you put pigment on. So I'm going around, and notice I'm being very careful when I hold it. You don't have to hold it. You might leave it down. It's up to you. I'm holding it so you guys can see what I'm doing a little better, but I'm not pushing it to where I have a fingerprint. So every which way I'm, you know, using all my fingers and my nails, I'm being careful. So there we go. That looks good. Now I will take my pencil and I will draw into it. Now you all should be very used to drawing into clay at this point. We've done several projects. And so we just drew this. We just drew this peacock feather. So just, you know, if you need to go refresh and you want to do that bookmark, the watercolor peacock bookmark, you can, or you could just do it with me now. So I just want to line up. Remember, this pencil clean it, get that clay off, and I want you to smooth in between each line. This will just be easier to do it while you're in the process instead of at the end when you have details. And sometimes you need to go over it again. If you have like little chunks of clay, you might want to go over your line again. And then, so right here, I'm going to, see I just did this, and then now I'm gonna do kind of like the same shape as my jewelry piece. And of course, if it doesn't look just like this, it's okay. Actually, it's better. It's better if it doesn't look just like it. That's the point of art. You don't want it to look just like everyone else. Okay, so see, I'm cleaning, smoothing, cleaning. And then if I wanted to do the center, I can use the eraser, my pencil. So I'm just gonna push in. And then I made these marks pretty deep. Now I might wanna lighten up a little bit. You wanna play with the pressure. Any kind of contrast is gonna be best. With any medium that we do, you want contrast. It's kind of just like music. You don't want everything to sound the same. That's not very interesting or dynamic. So just always think of that. You want to play with how you use your lines, what pressure you're dealing with. You want variation. So I'm going heavy, and then I'm lightening up towards the edge because I want it to resemble a feather. So I want the end to be really light. Okay. And if you didn't get it heavy enough, you can always go over it again. It's harder to take away if you get too heavy. Now, if I did something too deep, then I can kind of smooth it out, but I would start light because you can always go over it again and go deeper. Okay, I'm gonna hold this up so you can see. Now, where I put my mark, where I drew right here, see how it came out and it messed up my shape a little bit? I'm just gonna smooth that with my finger. Now, if you liked that, you can definitely leave it. So it's up to you. Now take a good look and see if there's any like little chunky parts like right here. I'm gonna go over that again with my pencil to make sure your pencil is clean. Okay, and then I'm gonna smooth that part out. Okay, I like it. I'm doing this quick because I want to show you a few examples. So I'm going to do another one and then we'll paint them with pigment. And this project doesn't use much clay, so I'm hoping that everybody can maybe make 2 pendants. So this could be one, and then, of course, after you kind of get your technique down, you'll be able to do whatever design you'd like. So I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to do the pigment yet because I'm going to get all the pigment and probably do it together. Once you put the pigment on your clay, you cannot really do any extra design. So I'm warming up another piece of clay. And then I'm gonna roll it out just like I did before. So of course, you know, if you want to use your palm and flatten, or if you just want to roll right away. So make sure to flip it. You don't want it stuck. It's really annoying once it gets stuck to the table. So I like to flip every time I roll. And I'm not putting much pressure because I think if you're lighter in your rolling, you're gonna get it smoother. And let me show you right there. Can you see that bubble? Occasionally you'll get a bubble, and that's another reason I kind of like to flip, and I like to be slower because then I can see if there's an air bubble and I can get that out. Because if you bake it with that air bubble in it, you will see it, and it will affect your design. All right, so now let's do, we could do the butterfly. Now drawing a heart, it's a little more tricky. I'm gonna do one edge with this tool and then the other edge with the butter knife, just to show you the difference. So now see how I'm putting it in, and then I'm just making sure my clay doesn't move on me. Then I can be really slow. I do not want to move, I just want to keep going. You want it to be one long line. Now, if you can't do this, that's okay, but it's just easier. See how smooth that came out? And it takes some getting used to. Now, if you are gonna use your knife, okay. Sorry, I'm doing it sideways because of the angle of this camera right now. So I'm gonna keep going until I get a point. Now I'm gonna get more of a point down there. So I'm gonna take this knife and I'm gonna go on this side. So you can always kind of go in and fix little edges. Don't worry. So there's my heart. Now don't waste clay. Take the excess clay and put it aside. Especially don't put this clay aside before you get your pigments out, because once the pigment gets on clay, you're unable to use it. And so I don't want anybody to waste supplies. So get your extra clay, put it aside. And we need to smooth this poor heart out a lot. Go around the edges, use your finger, be careful, slow, gentle. And I know none of you have used a butter knife because we usually have our clay tools with us. I've never used a butter knife before today, so this is my first try at it too. It's different for sure. And so in the center of my heart, it's got a little bit of edge lumpiness right there that I don't like. I'm gonna just use my nail. Now you can of course use a tool, but I'm just gonna smooth it. If you want to use a tool, you want to use the knife again, you can. So if I wanted to go in there and just use that edge of the knife and push down. And this, you know, you may not get this the first try. This might take a few tries of cutting your heart, and that's okay. You need to practice using these kind of tools and cutting your own shapes out. We usually make it easy and let you guys have our little jewelry push tools, so it's good for you. Good for you to make your own shape. And I really like it that it's not a perfect heart. I think it's cute. Okay, so now let's draw into it. Now, if you don't want a butterfly, just do something like a little design with your pencil. It can be stripes, dots. You can use the eraser. You can do any kind of design you want. And if you wanted to do a butterfly, then just draw into it exactly kind of like we did. We did butterflies for a watercolor session. So if you want to revisit that video, you can. So this one is intricate, so you need to really clean this pencil out a lot. So I would say after every couple marks, clean the pencil out. And it's gonna be cool to like let that wing go off the heart. I mean, you don't have to, but it makes for interesting composition. You don't always have to fit your design exactly on your paper or clay, or it's the same thing. So just, you know, don't be afraid to let it go off to where the rest of the design might be out here. It makes people imagine like you all of a sudden go off your piece. And I'm doing this fast. I don't want you guys to do it this fast. So definitely take your time. And if you need to draw this out on an extra piece of paper just to get your design down. So say you have your shape and you want to kind of trace the shape on a piece of paper, just draw it out. You can practice first if you want. A lot of people really prefer to practice their drawing before they draw into the clay. And you know this, you know, if you just want to practice and then wad this clay up and start again, you know, do that too. I mean, this is just for experimenting and playing with new materials. But I also would like you to love these and wear them or give them away. So now I want some of these lines to be a little deeper, so I'm going over a few of them and then I'm kind of gonna smooth them out. So right here I want to go a little deeper and then clean the pencil, and then I'm going to smooth it out. Make sure there's no chunks. And we need a couple antennas. And if you'd prefer to try drawing with your your paper clip, that's okay too. I think it's a little bit harsh. I'll show you. Let's go up here. I'll show you up here. You can play with both and see what you like, but if you want a really thin line, this is a good idea, using your paper clip. Okay, so here's my outline. Make sure there's no edges, and then we're going to start with some design in there. And so you might do this however you want, but I'll just do kind of some big loop marks over here. And then say I want some circles, you could just do some dots, big circles. These little details is what's gonna make it good. So now see how I went lighter on my pressure right there. I'm gonna press just little dots down below. I don't want the big dots like are up at the top. And I want a dot on the end of my antenna. So that's an interesting design. Once you like it, you know, really look closely, smooth out anything that's looking rough or off, and then get your pigments. So I've got 2 pieces here. Now if you want to do one of them all silver, you can do that. If you want to do half gold, half silver, just decide what you want to do. And with the pigments, I like to have a paper plate and then take, you don't want to waste this pigment. It's really good, it will last a long time, it's not cheap, so don't waste it. So that's why you want to put it on a paper plate. You don't want to dump a whole bunch out, you don't need that much. So just a little bit, okay, just tap it, tiny bit, and if you get too much, put it back in the jar. So we will get a little gold, I'll put it on the other side of the plate. Keep those colors separate. And this is a dirty plate. I recycle everything and reuse it, so apologies. I don't like to waste things. So there's other colors, but you can see the silver and you can see the gold. And I'll go ahead and put my jewelry pieces on the plate to keep it a little cleaner. And then that way any of the extra pigment I can reuse. You need a soft brush, any kind of brush will do. Just make sure it's not a coarse brush because that will actually add texture into your clay. So any kind of soft brush, it doesn't matter. I like this one with a point because I have more control. And let's start with the silver. I'm gonna use the same brush. So I'm gonna just do silver because then the gold is darker. So I can just switch and use the same brush and not even clean it. Of course, you can have separate brushes too. And so let's do the butterfly first. I'm going to just maybe start with the outside, and you want to take your pigment, paint it wherever you want this silver. And this silver is kind of more like a pearl. It's so shimmery though, it's just really pretty. And if you like rose gold, if you want to make your own color, you can mix this silver and the gold and make a rose gold. And I'll definitely do that on a future project. So if you don't want to try it on this one, we'll do it together on the next. But you can kind of mix these pigments just like paint. And you might want to, you know, certain parts of the design, you might want to really tap it so the pigment gets deep in the design. And you do want to do your edges. So I'm gonna, wherever I put my silver, I'm gonna do the edges. And let's do some silver on this one. I'm gonna just do the bottom right here. I'll do it silver. I might do the edges. So we'll do a little bit in silver in here. And thankfully when you go over, if you get silver where you didn't want it, you can always go over with gold. This gold is definitely gonna overpower the silver. That's why I'm doing the silver first, because I can always add gold later. So see how just a little bit of pigment went pretty far. Now you can kind of see the shimmer. Let's switch to the gold. And this is where you want to be more careful. So if you get a little bit of gold on the end of your brush, you might tap some of it away so it doesn't, the powder doesn't get into your silver where you don't want it. And then just paint. If you want to do the whole butterfly all gold, you can do that. You can do it however you want. You know, if you wanted some spots gold, some spots silver. I'm just making it easy, so I did the background silver and then I'm doing the butterfly all gold. I mainly just want you to see how these pigments work and how much it brings out your design. And these pigments are so shiny, it's actually really hard to photograph in video, so I hope that this comes through okay. You'll see what I mean when you do it in person, but they're kind of amazing. They're really metallic and they have a lot of colors, so if you decide you love this and you want to do more on your own, you can buy an entire set of these Pearl X pigments of all these colors, about $25, and it's just kind of a sample, so you get lots of colors, little small jars. So I'm getting the sides. And at this, you do not want the clay to be showing, so if you see some blank spots, make sure to get your brush in there and get them. And I'm gonna get the sides there. It's another reason I like using the plates, because you can really pick the plate up and see what you're doing. If you hold these, you know, it's easier to get a fingerprint mark or mess them up. You just don't have to worry about it this way. Okay, I'm gonna pick this up and show you up close how it's looking. So see how shiny that is? And if you decide, like, so right there, you see how a little bit of the powder got up at the top on my silver. You can leave it, or you can even rub it with your finger if you want it to go away. And if you need to put more silver on top, you can do that. So you can always do an extra layer of silver once you get this all down. And so if you wanted to even do more gold in this little part, you can. Now I like to sometimes use my finger just to get the powder rubbed in. This is just an option. I just think the oils in your finger, it helps kind of massage it into the clay and it makes it really smooth and shiny. So I use my finger. Okay, there we go. Let's do the peacock feather, finish that one. And I did just a little bit of silver. I'm gonna do a lot more gold. Actually, I'm gonna do the whole thing silver just to show you, and then I'm gonna do some gold. So I'm gonna use a new brush at this point because I don't wanna mix the gold and silver. So I just wanna show you what it looks like all silver, because I haven't done a silver project yet. So let's just look at it, and then I might add some gold after. So see how I'm tapping it? I want it to really get into my design, and so I'm tapping. And there's gonna be some loose powder. You don't really wanna bake it with that loose powder on top, mainly because you're probably using ovens that you actually eat from. So I just don't want all this loose powder in your oven. So I'm gonna have you, that's why another reason I want you to use your finger and smooth it. That way you don't have loose powder in your oven. I'm sure it's fine, but it's just better to keep it clean as possible. So that's what it looks like, all silver. Now if I wanted to add a little bit of gold, I could. Maybe just right here, I could add some gold. See how I'm being very careful with my gold. Just tapping it. And then maybe use my finger, get rid of that extra, and then you can go over it again if you need to add, if you want it brighter. I even want some gold down the center. I think that'd look good. So you can decide if you like just a little bit of gold or if you want to add more gold. This is what I want you to think about. You know, if you decide you don't like the silver, you can do the whole thing gold. If you just want to do a little bit of gold on the edges, you can. I mean, you can definitely do another layer of gold if you want it to be really bright in certain spots. Kind of just tap, get a little brighter. This one, if you want a few more spots of silver, you can do that. This is what I don't want you to do, but I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna use just a little silver, so I'm taking it right out of the jar. But just a little bit. So say I wanna add some silver maybe in these center parts, just to lighten it up. So you can keep adding, just figure out your stopping point. So there's my silver right there. I'm gonna add a little more, brighten up these edges. And you know, think about what you wear and what would look good with your outfits. If you decide you don't want to wear these, you can make them as little ornaments. You can also make them as brooches. If you don't want to poke a hole in them, you can glue a brooch pin on the back and wear them like that. You can put a magnet on the back. We've glued a lot of magnets on backs of things, so if you prefer to have a little magnet, do that. Okay, let's look. There's the pieces. Got peacock and butterfly. Of course, once you do this, you can kind of do your own thing. This will help you really get comfortable with these tools and drawing into clay. Once you have it the way you like, I want you to poke a hole in it if it's going to be a necklace or an ornament. Make sure to be mindful of where you poke the hole. Depending on where you want it to hang. If you want this to hang from this top part, if you want it to be kind of crooked on your neck, you can poke a hole there. You can poke it in the center. Totally up to you. I'm gonna poke a hole in this corner. I think that'd look good. So you poke it, go all the way through, and I want you to make it a little bit bigger just so if you put a string or that jump ring in there, it will be easier. So move it, and then there you go, there's your hole. Do the same thing with this one. I'm gonna put it in the center of this one. And remember, if it's gonna be a magnet, you may not want a hole, or if you want a brooch, but if it's gonna be a necklace or ornament, you need this hole before you bake it. There we go. Now go and bake it. Make sure to line your cookie sheet with foil. Lay these down on top of the foil. Put your oven to 275, and I want you to make sure there's no extra powder pigment where you can see chunks of powder. So if there is, just smooth it with your finger or brush it away. So put it on the foil, get your oven warmed up at 275, bake it for 12 minutes, let it cool all the way. Then you can pick it up and you can put your jump rings in it. And so if you have, you can do gold or you could do silver jump rings. You can also just put a string directly through it. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you wanted to just go right in and just put a string right through it, you can do that too. Super easy. Just make sure to double knot it. If you want to put the jump ring in it, let me show you how that works. Jump rings, always open them forward and back. These are easy. These are big enough to where you don't have to have a jewelry tool. You can use your fingers. Just don't open them this way. That's a no. Go forward. Then you put your piece through gently, and then you close it. Just close it. Make sure it closes all the way. And then you can put it on any chain, string, elastic, whatever you want to hang this on. and then you're done. And if you want to take, after it's all baked and cooled, if you want to take a paper towel to go over your piece, you just kind of lightly rub it and it will get any extra pigment off. So these are very durable. You can throw them on the ground and they won't break. Don't do it, but these should last a long time. See you next week.